Welcome back to the Brian Crombie Radio while we're on Second and 60. I want to address some of the things that I think Tony Chapman just raised and really appeal to you and ask you that question that Tony said was the most important question, which is, do you think that we're better off in Mississauga today? And I don't think we are. I think our taxes are out of control. I think our housing affordability is probably the biggest issue that we've got, and it's catastrophic. I think that our crime rate is increasing dramatically. I think our infrastructure is lacking. And I think we've lost vision. We've lost swagger. We've lost a confidence that I think we had in the past. And I do think that the existing councillors that are running for mayor are part of the problem. They created this situation. So why would we elect them to try to solve it? Why would we actually think they can solve it or know how to solve it or want to solve it? They were part of the problem. And so, as he said, same old, same old. And I think that I've got a bunch of skills and experiences that I think could change things. And I'd like to suggest that and explain that a little bit to you. So let's come back to our current problem. I think that we've got a bunch of career politicians that are lacking in knowledge of numbers and the ability to find efficiencies in our budget. And I think it stems from, to start with, that they don't really understand what our tax increases have been. They say, quote unquote, a modest 2.3% tax increase when their math is completely wrong. And I've said this on numerous occasions. What they're doing is they're taking the increase in Mississauga taxes and they're dividing it by both the Mississauga taxes and the Peel taxes and saying it's growing at 2.3%. And then they're taking the Peel tax increases and again, dividing it by the Mississauga taxes and the Peel taxes and saying it's growing at 4%. But if you actually divided Mississauga by Mississauga and Peel by Peel, you get 6.3% and 8.4%. Dramatically higher than they're telling you. They're misrepresenting the numbers. And my biggest fear is they don't actually understand it themselves. They're fooling you, but even worse, they're fooling themselves. And again, if you don't understand the problem, how are you ever possibly going to solve it? So that's number one. Number two, housing affordability is the number one issue. There's just no question about it. We have stolen from our children the dream of home ownership. And our kids today, they are walking in cement. They got debt, they got deficits, they got housing inaffordability, they got high taxes, they've got interest rates, they've got high inflation, they've got climate change, they got wars in Eastern Europe and the Middle East, and then they've got AI that people are saying is going to take away their jobs. And they got mental health issues because of the isolationism during COVID-19. And what can we do about it? We could build more homes and improve housing affordability. Because if you don't have a job and a place to live, life is pretty not good. And I think it is up to our municipal politicians to change the system of red tape and regulation and bureaucracy that is taking 5 to 7 years, if not longer, for anything to get reviewed, let alone approved, when it actually takes only 2 years to build a development. And this zoning, I don't think benefits us. I think that it's just bureaucracy. And Carolyn Parrish, who had a debate, said, well, she's going to solve it by having this summit meeting with people once a month that's going to cut through and solve things. That's proof that the system's not working. Solve the system rather than trying to have political interference and favoritism in as a way of potentially getting things through a bad system. Change the system. I have suggested improve the approval time period, review time period by 50%. I've said, and I know that can be done. You cut out the bureaucracy, it can be done. It's been done in lots of other bureaucratic morasses that we have in our society. And businesses look at and attack efficiency all the time because that's how you make a profit. Governments need to have that same attitude. Number two, increase the density around major transit areas by 20% minimum for whatever it was before, if half of that increase goes to affordable housing. And number three, we've got to cut down development fees, particularly on more affordable condominium development or residential development, and I would cut down development fees maybe to zero for anything that is sold for $500,000 or less. We are putting a tax on our young people and our newcomers, our immigrants to our community, renters that want to become homeowners. That is the most regressive tax in our society. We have taxes of $140,000 on a new housing unit in Mississauga today. It's unconscionable. And yet we build up these big, huge reserves, cash reserves, that we argue we need development for, development should pay for growth. We are fooling again ourselves, and we're just doing it so that we think we can collect money from rich developers, we say, and you've heard those quotes from numerous different people, but it's not. They pass it on. And so therefore you're collecting those monies from your kids that are wanting to buy a first house and jacking up the price so they can't afford it. So it's close to a crime, this regressive taxation that we have through development fees, and we've got to bring that under control. Third is these crime statistics are shocking. Car thefts, burglaries, home invasions, guns and poor credit. 47% of the Peel budget goes to Peel Police. The mayor sits on the Peel Services Board. This has got to be one of the number one priorities of a potential mayor, which is understanding what's gone wrong in our society and attacking it. And for one of the councillors, Deepika Damilia, to suggest a $10,000 stitch line is tantamount to failure. It's like, again, the example I used is once you start offering money for blood donations, people will no longer have a civic responsibility that they have to give blood for free, or they want to give blood for free. They'll only give the blood when you give them some money. If she puts in this snitch line, $10,000, people no longer are going to be good citizens because someone's saying, don't be a good citizen until we pay you money. It's the absolute wrong thing to do. The right thing to do would be to encourage everyone to have more civic pride, more civic spirit, more responsibility for your neighbor, more neighborhood watches, more safe city Mississaugas, more, as Jane Jacobs called it, vigilantes, vigilant neighbors, not vigilantes, I apologize, vigilant neighbors, people that are watching, eyes on the street, watching out for their neighbors. And then I think we need to have a vision. We had some big ideas under Mayor Hazel McCallion, Living Arts Center, Hershey Center, beautiful big downtown. We've lost that. And I've presented a couple, beautiful retail entertainment waterfront festival center down in Port Credit. I've talked about a great Central Park at Riverwood. I've talked about exploiting the Britannia Farms. I've talked about more vibrant main streets and infrastructure. All day, two-way, frequent GO train service on the Milton-Mississauga line would be a surface subway for Mississauga. We've talked about it for 20 years, 25 years. I will be the person who will argue for it incessantly in Ottawa and at Queen's Park, and I'll get it done. It's an 8-to-1 benefit to cost ratio. It's the most beneficial transit expansion in all of the Greater Toronto Area. One consultant told me it's the best one in all of North America from a benefit to cost ratio. It needs to get done. It should get done, and we've got to demand it of our municipal, federal, and provincial politicians. So that's the policy issue. Let me now talk, if I could, a bit about me and why I think I could make a good mayor. Number one, I've got reasonably good business experience. I'm currently the chief operating officer for a major real estate development company with operations across Canada and 3 states in the United States. I know about development. We've got seven multifamily residential sites in transit areas around the Greater Toronto Area. I've presented to city councils in Mississauga, in Toronto, in Dallas, in Florida. I know about the process of getting things approved and done, and frankly, building beautiful developments that are appealing to people that want to move into it. My first job when I graduated from my MBA was working for the Walt Disney Company, doing a similar thing for Walt Disney, both in Southern California and in Central Florida, and frankly, working on budget containment, efficiency issues in Euro Disney in Paris, France. I traveled around North America looking at master plan communities, retail entertainment, vibrant city cores, and in suburban areas, and talking with people about how you built those. And from that, we built downtown Disney, Pleasure Island, large hotel developments, regional malls, Celebration, a whole beautiful residential development. We really gave thought through how you build great cities. They were amusement parks, hotel developments, but effectively urban environments. I worked for the Molson companies and was responsible for the construction oversight and financing of the Molson Centre, now Bell Centre in downtown Montreal, negotiate with a redevelopment of an old train station, building five big buildings around that center, getting the zoning for it, the financing for it, and again, figuring out what it was that could build that vibrant center. I worked as the chief financial officer for the Ottawa Senators, and we developed a 53-acre development in downtown Ottawa. Regrettably, it didn't go ahead, but we got the zoning, we got the negotiation, we got the financing all put in place to figure out what would make that beautiful, vibrant thing that would attract people in downtown Ottawa. I know something about development and city building. I've been the chief financial officer of several different companies in the pharmaceutical, biotech, high-tech space, alternative energy space, and I know something about meeting the payroll, about efficiency, about budgets, about strategic planning. I've got an MBA from Harvard, and I'm currently studying for my DBA, my doctorate in business administration, and I'm studying economic development in clusters and ecosystems and how you develop them. From a volunteer standpoint, I've been involved in politics quite a while, but Mayor Hazel McCallion, former Mayor Hazel McCallion, asked me to co-chair and co-found the Mississauga City Summit, and I did that from 2007 to 2014. And it was a great organization that I think really played an important role in developing some thinking about Mississauga and where it could and should go at that time period. I became very friendly with the mayor at that time and intimately involved in a couple of her campaigns. I actually organized and launched a rally for Hazel, where we had a couple thousand people attend at one of her darkest times. I was president of the Mississauga Arts Council, was on that board for 7 years and president for 2 years, and had a great time really going out and understanding art and culture across Mississauga and what it took to be successful from a creative standpoint and in the creative industries, and the power that plays in our lives. The heart and soul of what a community can be is the festivals and the art and the culture. I'm currently chair of a GTA-wide organization called Transit Alliance that really thinks about and promotes and lobbies for transit investment. In that regard, I've looked at transit across the whole GTA, met with people both from a government standpoint and from an industry standpoint and a public standpoint, and thought about what is the kind of transit that really could transform this city that's going to be 10 million people in the greater metropolitan area of the whole Greater Toronto area. The fourth largest city in North America after Mexico, Los Angeles, New York, is going to be Toronto, and creating a transit system and vision that can really bring it together and help it become that engine that it needs to be and could be. And I've also, gone out into our community in a couple different ways. I did a whole big speaking thing about the Mississauga Arts Festival, Arts Council, and how what a city celebrates, it ends up bringing it together, and creativity, and how important that is. I developed as part of my DBA a concept called Community the Power Co. And I talked about those things that one needs to do to establish better, closer relationships with people from a business standpoint when you're trying to create an ecosystem. And I think that that's something from an entrepreneurship and economic development standpoint that I'd like to bring to the benefit of growing the airport corporate zone and other industry and business across Mississauga. And I've spoken a lot about transformational transit. And I've done TEDx talks and other keynote speeches at a lot of different events on some of these topics, as well as one called Ikigai, which is very close to who I am and what I'm all about, which is finding your passion in life. And my passion is trying to make a positive difference. And I'd love to try to make that positive difference for Mississauga. So if you're happy with where Mississauga is and where it's going, vote for one of the existing city councilors, because they got you to where you are. It's going to be a doubling of taxation in the next 10 years. It's going to be inefficiency in government, bureaucracy in government. It's going to be inaffordable housing. It's going to be lack of investment in infrastructure and transit, I believe, because those are the people that have have been there creating the situation that exists today. If you want change, if you want real change, if you want efficiency, if you want taxes brought into control, if you want the budget to be looked at with a fine-tooth comb, if you want someone that is going to have a bigger vision for what Mississauga could and should be, if you want housing affordability such that your kids can afford to actually build a home in to buy a home in Mississauga, if you want crime to be brought under control, I think I've got what it takes to make a pretty okay mayor. Please consider voting for Brian Crombie on June 10th. Thank you. Check me out on my website, briancrombie.ca, or all my videos for all my Saga 960 shows on briancrombie.com. Thanks for joining me tonight. Good night.